It's December, and this is when football gets really good. This is where you make your claim to make the playoffs. It starts right now.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Locked On Podcast Network. I am David Droegemeier, host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and I am joined with Louie DiBiase of the Locked On Eagles podcast. We have a fantastic prime time matchup to go over. December football, this is when it gets very real. But before we get into it, Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So if this is your first time checking out a Crossover episode, thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. We are going to go over the biggest storylines for each of these two football teams. We're going to get into the biggest matchups in segment 2, and in the final segment, we got to go over the keys for victory for each of these teams. Two teams, both at 8-4, who really need to get a big victory. This is December football, Louie. This is where it really, really matters. Your margin for error, it is completely gone. If you want to make the playoffs, you got to play your best football right now.
Yeah, this game is huge, and I think for the Philadelphia Eagles, I said it on the show a couple days ago, this might be the most important matchup that they've had since Super Bowl 59, because if they lose this game, and it's 3 straight, if they lose it in the fashion they did against Chicago and against Dallas, this could be a collapse very similar to 2023. So this is almost even at 8-5, that wouldn't end their season. They likely could still win the division and make the playoffs, but I do feel like 2023 will happen all over again if they don't get this one done. So this one is a massive matchup for the Birds.
And it is also for the Chargers. I think if you look at the playoffs and you look at the percentages, if they win this game, it goes to like 80+% for them to make the playoffs. If they lose this game, it goes under 50%. It is a massive swing game for the Chargers because you look at the schedule, Louie, and there are no easy teams left on this schedule for the Chargers. You got to play the Philadelphia Eagles. You got to play the Chiefs again, the Broncos again, the Texans with one of the best defenses in the NFL. I mean, it's a murderer's row. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. The Chargers are going to have to step up and be ready. But as you know, the Chargers are hosting this game on Monday Night Football. We'll go ahead and kick things off with the Eagles and the biggest story. What is the biggest storyline for the Eagles here going into this game?
I think for the Eagles, it's just how are they going to look in this matchup from a fight perspective, from an effort perspective. I think that's the thing about this game, why I talk about the 2023 collapse, is that it wasn't only they lost 5 of their last 6 down the stretch that year, but it really did feel like they gave up because the wins didn't look the way they wanted it to look. They just seemed like the most miserable 10-1 team of all time. And then when they finally got punched in the mouth against San Francisco and Dallas, they just kind of said, oh, maybe we're not as good as we thought, and kind of reined it in the rest of the year. So in this game, it's not just a must-win because you're trying to still hold off the Dallas Cowboys. And like you said, it's murder's row for the Chargers in the AFC. Like, everybody's fighting for a spot. In the NFC, it's a deep conference too, but it's not just about if you win, it's about how you win or how you look in this game. Even if they lost a close game, but things were better on offense, and it felt like they still had fight left in them, I can kind of live with that. There is not always moral victories this late in the year, but I just want to be sure this team isn't going to give up again and totally collapse. So that's what I'm watching because the rest of the schedule for the Eagles is kind of favorable. They play Washington twice. They play the Las Vegas Raiders. In your guys' division, you know what a mess they are right now. And then, of course, that matchup in Buffalo against the Bills is tough. But if you win those 3 favorable matchups down the stretch, you're going to have at least 1 or 2 home playoff games. So for me, it's the storyline for the Eagles is all about how they look, especially on the offensive side of the ball in this game, if they don't just look completely inept. Because I was in the building against the Bears on Black Friday. That was the worst they have looked in a really long time.
I mean, Louie, it's hard to beat any opponent when your opponent is running it almost 50 times against your defense. Like, two things. One, you allow them to dictate what they're going to do to you. And two, your defense is on the field all game long.
That's why the Eagles are so good last year, David. I mean, they at one point were able to kill an entire quarter of clock against the Pittsburgh Steelers running the football. So absolutely.
Yeah, before I get into the biggest storyline for the Chargers, which I think everybody knows is pretty obvious, but I'll get into it in a second. Lane Johnson, the superstar all-world first ballot Hall of Fame right tackle. What's his status for this game? Do we know anything about it? What's that looking like?
Yeah, so Lane Johnson's still dealing with a Liz Frank injury. He's not going to play in this game. It'll be Fred Johnson that starts at right tackle for the third week in a row. They're hoping that Lane gets back within the next week or two, definitely for the playoff run, but they're going to be more cautious with Lane for sure because he's such an instrumental part of this playoff run. If they're going to go anywhere, they need number 65 as close to full health as they're going to get. So I don't believe, even against a pretty good Chargers pass rush, they'll rush him back from this one. I think Lane's going to be out, and the offensive line's been pretty banged up. That's been a huge reason the Eagles have been very inconsistent this year too, is from the left side all the way to the right, they do not look like the dominant offensive line we saw last year.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, my friend. The Chargers
you guys
lost
know more than anyone
before the season even started, and lost Joe Alt during the season. So if anybody knows anything about offensive line woes, it's definitely the Chargers. But biggest storyline for the Chargers here is, will Justin Herbert play on Monday Night Football? Obviously, against the Raiders in the victory over the Raiders, he broke a bone in his non-throwing hand on his left hand. He had surgery and had it stabilized. And Justin even said after the game, and has maintained it even today, that he plans on playing on Monday. And honestly, Louie, I never really had any kind of thoughts that he wouldn't play, just because he's played with broken fingers on that same non-throwing hand. He's played with 2 bum ankles. He's played with fractured rib cartilage. There's no way that you can question Justin Herbert's toughness. Now, what version of Justin Herbert are you going to get, and what are they going to be able to do with him with the limitations that the injury is going to have? Is he going to be able to take snaps under center? Probably not, right? That's something that we saw that was an adjustment against the Raiders, and we're going to have to see him in the pistol and see him in the shotgun, and are they going to be able to run their offense the same way that they want? I do think also there's a chance that you could see Trey Lance under center in some of those short yardage situations where they don't obviously want to put their $260+ million quarterback who has a broken hand in the middle of that fray. So what version of Justin Herbert you're going to get, and how is he going to look against a Eagles defensive line that is still one of the best in the game?
Well, the Eagles defense has certainly carried them throughout the year. That's why they were 8-2 at one point, now 8-4 on the year. But that's why, even like you mentioned earlier, the run game, why it's so important for the Chargers is, like Justin Herbert is not going to be able to save you play in and play out, especially against a really stout Eagles secondary. I think they have to run the football, and the Bears last week were able to do it. They nearly had 300 yards on the ground against this Philadelphia defensive line, which was unlike this Vic Fangio defense this year, but I think that'll probably be the blueprint because, with that injury, even if he plays, I mean, Herbert is going to be limited.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. Justin Herbert is a genetic freak. I mean, there is a lot to like about Justin, obviously being 6'6", 240 pounds, and life on and off the field is going pretty well for number 10 there. But yeah, he's going to be limited. We'll see, how they're able to combat that. Obviously, got to get the ball out of his hands quickly. You got to have the max protect whenever you're trying to dial anything up, and he has to protect himself as well. Like, he has to be smart. Like I said, he has played with a broken finger on that non-throwing hand before, so I think that experience dealing with that injury is going to be invaluable for him. Knowing how to protect himself when he's having to fall, and make sure that he's doing that in a smart way, because it's not just this game on Monday that's important for him to be out there. These next 4 games after it are going to be just as important for Justin Herbert to be ready to go in this game. But speaking of this game, we have to get into the biggest matchups that are going to decide this one, and we are going to do that right after this. But first, I got to tell you guys about PrizePicks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. PrizePicks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. For this game, you can go with Justin Herbert if he plays to throw more than half a touchdown and pair that with Saquon Barkley running for more or less than 66.5 rushing yards. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And we are back here on Crossover Thursday. I am David Droegemeier, Locked On Chargers. I am with Louie DiBiase, Locked On Eagles. And we have to get into the biggest matchups that are going to decide this game on Monday night in primetime at SoFi in Los Angeles. It's a big fight feel, and it absolutely should be because it's December football, and it's going to be a big one for both of these teams. So, biggest matchups, Louie. Let's start out with the Eagles once again. What do you think is one of the biggest, most important matchups in this football game?
I think it's really going to be the Chargers' interior pass rush against Tyler Steen and Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. The center, left guard, right guard combination has not been good for the Eagles this year in the run blocking department, pass protection. Tyler Steen this year has allowed the 4th most pressures among all guards with 27. Landon Dickerson is normally an all-pro player at left guard. He's allowed the 9th most pressures this year with 24. Pressure up the middle has really flushed Jalen Hurts outside of the pocket on the run, and while Hurts can do a lot of damage with his legs, he normally isn't used to not having such a clean pocket, and his clock's been rushed lately. So I think that's what I'm really looking at, because the run game's already been super inconsistent. If they can't protect Jalen now through the air as well, this offense, again, the identity of this offense is the offensive line. I think there's a lot of reasons the offense has been so inconsistent this year, but that's to me the number one reason it has been so bad in 2025. So can Tyler Steen, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens hold up against the Chargers? They're going to have to. If he's running for his life like he was against Chicago, this could be a long game.
Yeah, no question about it. The spine of the football team always dictates how things are going to end up.
It does,
It's just a fact of life. But I think I'll just do a kind of an overarching theme here. It's Jesse Minter versus Kevin Patullo. One of the things that you hear from Eagles fans about their frustrations with the offense with Kevin Patullo. Many have said it's a very simple offense, and Jesse Minter's defense has kind of struggled with creative play callers like Liam Cohen and Shane Steichen, Cliff Kingsbury. Patullo is on the hot seat, kind of been a little bit desperate for the Eagles offense to get back on track. So have to think this is going to be a very run-centric game plan. Last week, the Chargers were great against the run. They only allowed 31 yards, and that was just 1.7 yards per carry. Can they do that against Saquon Barkley? I know this hasn't been the same type of Saquon this year that we saw last year, who was just truly dominant, had one of the most historic seasons in NFL history. And that's one of the things, because I watched 3 or 4 games of every single opponent, and he just has not been as dynamic. And I'm sure the offensive line and the inconsistencies of that play a factor in it, as it always will. But it just doesn't seem to me that it's the same explosive Saquon Barkley that we saw. Do you think that's a fair observation?
Yeah, I think the majority of the problems are up front with the offensive line, but I will say, in Saquon, he's made some big plays this year where you could still see the athleticism, still see the speed, but no, is he the same player as last year? I wouldn't say so. And that's just par for the course throughout the history of this league, though, David. Is you look at a running back that had a season where he had a historic usage rate. Saquon had maybe the best season a running back has ever had in the history of this league. Yeah. Normally, the following season, there's a pretty significant regression statistically and efficiency-wise for many reasons, because of just normal wear and tear, age, defenses honing in on you. Like, Saquon is the focus. They know how inconsistent the passing game is, and they're saying number 26 is not going to beat us. The health of the offensive line's been holding that back. So, yeah, that's why I kind of think this might be a pass-first approach. They obviously want to establish the run, especially in the second half if they have a lead, but I think they're going to need this passing game to do something, because the run game hasn't been there all year, and I don't know like when that'll get back on track with the health of this offensive line probably not changing. But no, I mean, Saquon, I don't think he's the reason for the issues, but I don't think he has run the ball as well as he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, so like obviously it's going to be very important for them to try to figure that out. But if they do go with the pass first approach, that kind of plays right into the strengths of the Chargers defense. Like, they are one of the top pass defenses in the NFL. They are not equally as stout against the run. And I think the way to get at the Chargers is to try to run that football and to be able to take advantage, because these two defenses are very similar schematically, right? They want to put a roof over the coverage. They want to make you have to win by death by 1,000 paper cuts, make you execute and take away those explosive plays. So they're going to have to find that running game because the Chargers are not going to give them those explosive plays.
No, I agree. I think when I'm talking about the passing game, they need to find more ways to create easy yardage. Like, I'm not even talking go for broke, because you're right. With the Eagles' offense this year, it feels like it's been run the football, third and long, let's take a shot. There's no middle ground where the passing game is helping you stay ahead of the sticks. Kevin Patullo has not done a good job of really scheming players open. Jalen Hurts hasn't done a good job of using the middle of the field, that 10 to 15 yard range, right? I think the screen game, getting these guys run after the catch opportunities, that's where they need to be better in the passing game, because the run game hasn't been doing it, and that's why this team's been in 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7+. And this team is not built, even though they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. With a Jalen Hurts-led offense, you're normally not built to play from behind the stick. So when I talk about the passing game, I want to see that intermediate and short game become more efficient at some point this year. I don't know if it's going to happen until you have a new play caller, but that's why they've been such an inconsistent offense as well.
Yeah, maybe it's being more aggressive on first downs, on early downs, right? So
exactly.
When you get to those third down situations, you're in more manageable down and distance.
Right.
I think another one for me, the Eagles' defensive line. You talk about the Chargers' defensive line. The Eagles' defensive line against the Chargers' offensive line is another huge matchup in this game. The Eagles have two interior defensive linemen that have 36 pressures each, and the Chargers' interior offensive line have combined to allow 64 pressures this year. The Eagles' pass rush ranked 8th in pressure percentage. They do that while blitzing, the 6th least in the NFL. So that just means that they have some real dogs up front.
Yeah.
This is all about the Chargers, also about the Chargers being able to get push at the line of scrimmage in the running game. And, even with a healthy Justin Herbert, he's not going to be able to win this game on his own. They got to have that offensive line moving forward, opening up holes for the running game, and playing complementary football against a defensive line that is very, very good.
Yeah. I'm also looking at Ladd McConkey against Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, because if Justin Herbert's not going to be at 100% and the pass rush is going to be something they hope to avoid wrecking this ball game, Herbert's going to want to get the ball quickly out of his hands, right? So I feel like, and if he's lined up inside a lot against Cooper DeJean, that's a strength-on-strength matchup. DeJean's one of the best slot corners in football. Ladd is one of the hardest players to guard one-on-one. Quinyon Mitchell as well, having an all-pro, potentially first-team all-pro season. That's going to be a really interesting matchup, too. The Chargers have a lot of weapons, but McConkey's the guy I'm watching specifically in the quick passing game.
Yeah, I think one guy that you also need to pay attention to when it comes to the quick passing game is Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston's the best yards after catch receiver that the Chargers have. And he is a big guy, a lot bigger than a lot of people think when they try to go to tackle him. A lot of people can't, they don't square him up. They don't find a good angle on him because they're bigger. He's bigger than they expect him to be. And he's very, very dangerous. Yeah, the hands have been an issue in the past, but I think this year it's been much better for him. He's been more consistent. He's been able to catch those bullet passes that Justin Herbert likes to unleash. He's been able to do a good job catching over his shoulder. But one of the things he's always brought to the office was his ability when the ball is in his hands. So we'll look to see how that's going to look. And of course, we're going to get into what each one of these teams have to do to be able to pick up a big win in prime time on Monday Night Football. We are going to get into all of that right after this. All right. Seems like every time I do this crossover, the keys to victory sound very, very similar. But this is a very simple but very complicated game. So a lot of the times it does come down to executing on those fundamentals. But for this game in particular, two very, very similar teams defensively, and both these teams offensively have some weapons they definitely want to try to utilize in this game. So for the Eagles, we'll go ahead and continue with the trend of starting with you guys. Yeah. What do you think is the most important key to victory for the Eagles in this game?
I think, and I talked about wanting to be more explosive, more efficient on offense earlier in the game, right? But I think late in the game, the reason they lost against Dallas and against Chicago, they didn't move the football all game long, but untimely turnovers have killed this team. Without that, they might be looking at a win against both teams despite how inconsistent they were. They've been winning games like that all year because in the fourth quarter, this offense, at least when they've been terrible in three quarters, they're clutch and they are turnover free in one-score games late. And then the Dallas Cowboys game comes, right? Saquon Barkley fumbles the ball back to the Cowboys when they're driving down the field. A punt return, fumble, gives the Cowboys the ball back in their own territory. Then this past game, Jalen Hurts uncharacteristically throws an interception late in the game and has a fumble on the tush push. I want them to play again more aggressive and not scared to turn the ball over early, but later on in games, like you cannot turn the ball over in the fourth quarter. And that's normally something that's kind of been their superpower. Like, yes, even when the offense is terrible, in the end, they make the play to win the game, not the play to make the mistake, not the play to lose the game, except for these last two matchups. And that's, to me, the main reason they're 8-4 instead of 10-2.
Yeah, it's all about having your best when your best is required in the fourth quarter, right?
Normally that's what Jalen Hurts does best, man. So that was uncharacteristic for sure.
Yeah, I think for the Chargers, especially given the health situation of Justin Herbert, it's very important for them to start fast. The Chargers have scored on the first drive in 6 of their 8 wins this season. If they score more points, if they score more points on their first possession, they substantially increase their chances of winning the football game. Playing from behind is not a recipe for anybody, especially not a offense that doesn't run the ball or pass the ball consistently from the jump. So starting fast for the Chargers, getting points on the board, getting those good vibes flowing from the very beginning is essential for the Chargers if they want to win this football game. Where are you going to go next with your keys to victory here for the Eagles?
Yeah, I think, and then what I was talking about earlier, you have to find better ways to succeed on first and second down. It always feels like it's the same initial game script for Kevin Patullo. It's inside zone. Oh no, it's 3rd and 7. We got to take a deep shot. And I just don't think that's sustainable. So I want to see them be more aggressive on first and second down. Yes, when you have normally a great offensive line and a good run game and a tush-push play that normally works 99.9% of the time, getting into like a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 kind of situation by running twice, you can normally pick those yards up in a couple plays, and they like to be aggressive on 4th down. But Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni, they have to find answers in the quick passing game, in the run game, to make sure that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to pull a rabbit out of a hat, because Jalen can do that at times, but I don't think that's his strength. This team is better playing with a lead and better playing ahead of the sticks more than other teams. They are built to do that. And so I think that's something I'm really going to be watching because it's been a problem all year.
Yeah, the next thing I'm going to go to is protecting the football. The Chargers, in every single one of their losses, have either lost or matched the turnover battle. And the Chargers have turned the ball over in 10 of their last 11 games. And Justin Herbert has to do his job of protecting the football. He has thrown more interceptions this year by 7 than he did all of last year, and there's still 5 games left. Are all of those on him? No, and neither is it for any quarterback in the NFL. There's always tip passes and there's always extenuating circumstances, but at the end of the day, it still has a 10 next to the interception number for Justin Herbert, which is something that we don't want to see and is very uncharacteristic. With him being limited, he has to be smart with the football, and everybody, make sure you're protecting that football and try to go get some turnovers on the other side, right? You win the turnover battle, you win games. It's really that simple. It's very plain and dry. And then as far as the last thing for the Eagles to win this game, to stay on track, what is it going to be for this game?
I think they just need to tackle so much better on defense than they did a week ago against Chicago. Like you said, the Chargers have some good – this isn't your dad or your older brother's Chargers. Like, they have some legitimate weapons for Justin Herbert. Ladd McConkey, one again, the most explosive inside-out route runners in all of football. Quentin Johnson, like you said, a touchdown machine, an underrated run-after-the-catch player. Aronde Gadsden, somebody I loved coming out of Syracuse, and he's been really good this year. A really nice surprise. Yeah. Keenan Allen is a fourth option in an offense.
Reliable, man.
Is Amarian Hampton playing this week? Is he back?
Yes.
So there you go.
Is going to be back for this game.
Exactly. There's a lot of weapons, and the Eagles did not tackle well against the Chicago Bears, especially on that second and third level. Sidney Brown at safety was such a liability without second-round pick Drew Makuba in the lineup. Fractured ankle. He won't be playing in this game either. Maybe Marcus Epps ends up starting ahead of Sidney Brown, but they cannot allow the Chargers to turn a 5-6-yard play into a 15 to 20-yard game like Chicago got, and that was a huge problem last week. So, again, another one that just sounds obvious, but tackling is going to be so key here against an explosive offense that, again, for Justin Herbert to make things easier, that's something they're going to need to create some production.
No question about it. And for me, the last one, if you've watched or listened to my show, I've said this multiple times, but I'm going to say it again. You got to bring the physicality. You got to bring the physicality and the violence. It's a non-negotiable. The Eagles have nasty players on both sides of their line. Jordan Mailata, Dickerson, Steen. On defensive line, you got Nolan Smith. You got Jalen Carter, Jalen Phillips, Jordan Davis. Just some absolute monsters on both sides of the ball. The Chargers have to bring that violent attitude from the very first snap to the very last snap. You get to take advantage of the fact that you get to physically assault somebody for 3+ hours. That has to be the mentality, right? That has to be what you bring to the table every single play. Because I've watched every single Chargers game for the last 25 years. I can tell very, very soon whether they're playing with that energy and that effort that's required, or when they're playing lazy and lackadaisical and they go out there and get pushed around like they did against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's funny how that
physicality
works.
And violence was there against the Raiders. It was not against the Jaguars, and it must be there against the Eagles.
Yeah, and the same with the Eagles. Like, it was clearly there after the bye week in Lambeau against Green Bay against the Detroit Lions, and it just wasn't against the Cowboys and the Bears. So this game is so massive for both teams. The NFL it's such a weird season for this league. It is so close. I have no idea what to think of teams on a weekly basis. It's been the most confusing year of the NFL to me since 2017 when it was Nick Foles, Case Keenum, and Blake Bortles in the conference championship. So both of these teams need wins. It's a dogfight for these playoff seeds right now, and so that makes it entertaining, but the stakes get much higher in those kind of setups this late into the season. So it's going to be a good one on Monday Night Football for sure.
It's December. This game is crucial for both of these teams. Of course, we're going to get more into it, I'm sure. With the Chargers and my show, we're going to get into our fan mail show on Friday, get into our keys for success on Monday when that game is supposed to kick off. Make sure you check out Louie and his great content covering the Eagles over that Locked On Eagles, wherever you get your podcast from, whether it's an audio or video on YouTube as you're watching this here. We thank you so much for spending some of your time here with us, talking football, talking about this fantastic football game. And I know all of you are looking forward to this one, just like I and Louie are on Monday night. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Have a great night. Take care. All right.